So, I'm not even sure how to start this, but I guess I'll jump right in. My wife, Kelly, and I have been together for 10 years, married for 7. We've got 2 kids, a boy and a girl, ages 5 and 3. Life has been pretty much what you'd expect. Work, kids, the usual. I thought everything was fine, normal even, but I've been an idiot. A blind, trusting idiot. It started about a month ago when Kelly began acting off. She got a new job in sales last year, and yeah, I was proud of her, especially since she was doing well. But lately, she's been coming home later and later, always saying she's out with clients or at some networking event. I didn't think much of it at first. I mean, that's part of the job, right? Then, one night, I came home early from work. My job at the construction site wrapped up earlier than expected, and I thought I'd surprise her. But when I walked in, the house was weirdly quiet. Kelly usually gets home by 6, but it was past 8. The kids were with my mom that day, so I had the place to myself. I grabbed a beer and plopped down on the couch to watch TV, waiting for her to come home. After about an hour, I heard the door unlock. I figured it was Kelly, but when I turned around, it was some guy, a dude I had never seen in my life, standing there with his hand on Kelly's waist, smiling like he belonged in my house. Kelly froze when she saw me, and I just stood up, beer bottle in hand, trying to process what I was seeing. The guy, some slick-looking jackass in a suit, looked between us, and for a split second, I thought he was going to throw a punch, like I was the one intruding. I don't know what happened next. Everything felt like it was in slow motion. I remember Kelly stepping forward, saying something like, "It's not what you think." And I just stared at her. I mean, how many times do you hear that line in movies? And here she was, actually saying it to me, with this guy's hand still on her. And then, as if things couldn't get worse, the guy just blurts out, "Well, maybe this is a good time to tell him, Kelly." Tell me what? I stood there, trying to keep my cool, but I could feel the rage bubbling up inside me. The guy had this stupid, smug look on his face like he was proud of what was going on. And then it hit me. This wasn't just some random guy. This guy was someone important to her, someone she had clearly been hiding. I clenched the beer bottle so tight, I thought it might break in my hand. Before I could say anything, Kelly walked over to me, pleading with her eyes. She said, "Just let me explain, please." And that's when I lost it. Explain what? That you've been sneaking around behind my back? That this guy thinks it's totally normal to be in our house like he's part of our life? But what happened next wasn't what I expected. I was gearing up for a fight, for him to defend himself, for her to cry, or whatever. But instead, they both sat down on the couch, like this was some kind of intervention. The guy introduced himself as Eric, and then, looking straight at me, he said, "I know this is a shock, but we want to talk to you about something." I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "We want to talk to you? Who the hell is we?" "This is my wife." Kelly's face was pale, and for the first time, she looked genuinely scared. Not scared of me, but scared of what was about to happen next. And then they hit me with it. They told me, together, that they wanted me to be involved. I had no idea what that meant at first, but the more they talked, the more insane it sounded. They were in some kind of relationship. Kelly had been seeing Eric for months, and now, they wanted me to be part of it. Some kind of disgusting, open relationship where we'd all just share. I didn't know whether to laugh or punch something. Was this a joke? A test? But the looks on their faces told me it was real. They wanted me to be a willing member of this twisted arrangement. I just stared at them, my blood boiling. And that's when I noticed it. His hand, still on her, resting on her damn leg like he owned her. That was it. I snapped. The next part of this nightmare came crashing down fast. After Eric dropped that bomb about their so-called open relationship, I was still reeling. I couldn't believe Kelly, my wife of 7 damn years, was sitting there, looking me dead in the eyes and trying to pass this off like it was some casual, normal conversation. My mind was spinning, trying to catch up to the words I was hearing. They wanted to turn our marriage into some kind of twisted triangle, and they thought I'd be okay with it. I was just about to lose it, but something caught my eye. Kelly's phone lit up on the couch next to her. It was a text, and from where I was standing, I could see it was from Eric. He was texting her right there, while we were all sitting together, as if this was some sick inside joke between them. My heart was pounding in my chest, and the room started to feel like it was closing in on me. I couldn't think straight, but one thing was clear. I needed to get the hell out of there. I told them both I was going to get some air, but what I really wanted was time to process what the hell was happening. I grabbed my jacket and walked out into the backyard, the cool air hitting me like a slap in the face. For a moment, I just stood there, staring at the sky, breathing heavy. I thought about all the nights Kelly had been working late, all the times I'd trusted her without question. It all felt like a lie now. All I could see were the signs I missed, the ones that were so obvious in hindsight. But here's where things get even more messed up. As I stood there, trying to calm down, I heard a noise behind me. It was the sound of a door closing softly, the sliding glass door leading from the living room to the backyard. I turned around, and there she was, Kelly. She had followed me outside. She stood there, arms crossed, looking at me like she was about to say something important, but I didn't care. I wasn't ready to hear whatever excuse or explanation she had lined up. I was about to tell her to save it when she said, "I'm sorry." I laughed. I actually laughed, because sorry wasn't going to fix this. Not even close. Sorry? For what exactly, Kelly? For cheating on me? For bringing this asshole into our house? For lying to me about your late nights? Or are you sorry you got caught? She winced at my words, but I didn't care. She needed to feel what I was feeling. The rage, the betrayal. But then, like she had no shame left, she said something I'll never forget. It wasn't supposed to be like this. I didn't mean for it to get this far. What the hell does that even mean, Kelly? What did you think was going to happen? You've been screwing around behind my back, and now you're telling me you didn't mean for it to get this far? I could barely hold back the anger in my voice. It felt like the air around me was vibrating with tension, but she just stood there, quiet for a minute, and then she said it, the truth. "I've been seeing Eric for almost a year," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. But it wasn't just about the sex. The word hit me like a punch to the gut. Sex. She said it like it was nothing, like she was talking about something casual, something normal. But this wasn't normal. Not for me. Not for the guy who thought his wife was faithful. I didn't want to hear any more. I felt like I was about to explode, but she kept going, like she was determined to get it all out. It started as just physical, just sex. I thought I could handle it. I thought it wouldn't mean anything, but it did. It started to mean something more. I stepped back, my hands shaking. The image of her and Eric flashed in my mind, together, doing things that only we should have been doing. The thought of him touching her, of them being intimate while I was clueless, made me sick to my stomach. Was he in our bed? I asked, my voice cold. She hesitated for a second too long. "Tell me, Kelly, did you bring him into our house? Did you have sex with him in our bed?" She didn't answer right away, but I could see the guilt written all over her face. "Not at first," she started, but that was all I needed to hear. I stormed past her, back into the house, back toward the bedroom. I wasn't sure what I was looking for, but I knew I needed to see. I needed to know for sure what I was dealing with. As soon as I walked into the bedroom, the bed we shared for 7 years, the bed where we made our kids, I felt like a stranger in my own home. I tore the sheets off the bed, threw pillows to the floor, looking for what? I don't even know. Proof. Maybe? Confirmation that they had defiled the one place that was supposed to be ours and ours alone. And then it hit me. This wasn't about the bed. This wasn't about the sex. This was about trust. The one thing I thought we had, the one thing that was supposed to be sacred, was shattered. She had betrayed me, and no matter what I found in that room, the damage was already done. Kelly followed me in, pleading with me to calm down, but I couldn't. I couldn't calm down. Not after what I'd just heard. I spun around to face her, the rage burning in my chest. "You think you can just say sorry and expect me to be okay with this? You think I'm going to stick around while you screw someone else? Are you insane?" She looked at me, eyes wide, as if she hadn't expected this reaction, as if she really thought I'd be cool with it, like I'd just accept her betrayal and move on. "I thought you'd understand," she said, her voice trembling. "Understand what, Kelly? That you've been cheating on me for a year? That you've been lying to me, to your own kids, while you sneak around with this guy?" "It's not like that," she said, but I cut her off. "It's exactly like that. You've been having sex with him, sneaking him into our house, and you think I'm supposed to just be okay with that?" She didn't say anything, and that's when I knew there was nothing left to say. She was guilty, and no amount of talking was going to fix this. The silence in the room was suffocating. Kelly just stood there, her face pale and her lips trembling, but there were no tears, no real regret that I could see. It was like she had rehearsed this moment, like she was prepared for my reaction, maybe even expecting me to come around eventually. But I wasn't about to come around. I took a deep breath, trying to control the storm that was raging inside me. My heart was hammering in my chest, and every part of me wanted to scream, to punch something, to destroy anything that reminded me of her and this mess. I couldn't believe it had gotten to this point. How did I miss the signs? Kelly's voice broke the silence, soft and pleading. "Gary, I know this is hard, but please, can't we talk about it? Can't we try to work something out?" Work something out? That was the line for me. She was asking me to negotiate with her, as if this was some kind of business deal where I could compromise. She didn't want to leave me. Oh no, she wanted both. Me and this guy, Eric. She wanted her perfect life, her kids, her husband, and her affair. I stepped closer to her, looking her dead in the eyes. Work something out? What exactly do you want to work out, Kelly? How many nights you'll spend with him and how many nights you'll spend with me? Or maybe you think we can all just get along and share you like some community project? She flinched at my words, but I didn't care. This wasn't going to be pretty, and I wasn't about to make it easy for her. "I didn't mean for it to happen like this," she said quietly, trying to look sincere. "I love you, Gary. I do. But things between us, they haven't been the same for a while. I've been feeling disconnected." There it was. The classic excuse. She wasn't happy. She felt disconnected. And that's why she decided to sleep with someone else instead of, talking to me about it. I let out a bitter laugh. Disconnected? And the way to fix that was to have sex with another man? To sneak around behind my back for a whole year? You think that's going to make us reconnect? She reached out to me, but I stepped back. I didn't want her touching me. Not after what I just heard. It felt like her hands were dirty, tainted with the memory of him. Of Eric. "I don't know what else to say," she whispered, her voice cracking for the first time. I was confused. I didn't know how to tell you. I never wanted to hurt you like this. "Well, congratulations," I snapped. "You did. You hurt me in ways you'll never understand. You broke everything. And now you expect me to just sit here and listen to your excuses." Kelly started crying then, tears streaming down her face, and part of me hated that I was seeing her like this. The woman I once loved more than anything in the world was now a stranger, and those tears didn't move me anymore. They didn't make me feel like comforting her. I just felt numb, except for the anger. The anger was still burning hot inside me. And just when I thought this couldn't get any worse, the front door opened. I heard footsteps, slow and deliberate, walking into the house like they belonged there. My heart sank because I knew who it was. Eric. This bastard had the nerve to come back into my house after everything. He walked into the bedroom like he was strolling into his own place, and when our eyes met, something inside me snapped. The audacity of this guy, just waltzing in like he wasn't the reason my life was falling apart. He was wearing that same smug expression he had earlier, like this whole thing was some sort of game, and I was the clueless idiot who didn't know the rules. "Eric," Kelly said, her voice trembling, This isn't the time." I didn't even give her a chance to finish. "You think this is a joke?" I said, stepping toward him, my fists clenched at my sides. "You think you can just walk in here and act like you belong in my house with my wife?" Eric raised his hands, trying to look calm, like he was above all this. "Look, man, I don't want any trouble. I thought we were going to have a mature conversation about this." "Mature conversation? Are you out of your mind?" I growled. "You've been screwing my wife for a year behind my back, and you think this is something we can just talk about like adults?" He had the nerve to look surprised, like he couldn't believe I was reacting this way. "I get that you're angry, but Kelly and we care about you, man. We don't want to hurt you. We want to include you." Include me? I couldn't believe what I was hearing. This guy thought he could include me in their twisted affair, Like this was some kind of arrangement we could all agree on. Like I'd be happy sharing my wife with him. "Get the hell out of my house," I said, my voice low and dangerous. "Before I do something we'll both regret." Eric opened his mouth to say something, but I didn't want to hear it. I was already charging at him, fists clenched and ready to swing. Kelly screamed and tried to pull me back, but it was too late. I grabbed Eric by the collar, slamming him against the bedroom wall. He looked genuinely scared now, and that only made me angrier. "I told you to get out," I growled through gritted teeth. "You come into my house, sleep with my wife, and now you think you can make me a part of this? You're insane." Kelly was crying harder now, begging me to stop, but I didn't care. I was seconds away from beating this guy to a pulp, and nothing was going to stop me. But then, Eric, this slick bastard, said something that made me freeze. "Kelly told me you wouldn't react well," he said, his voice shaky but defiant. "But this isn't just about the sex, man. We were hoping you'd understand. We thought you might want to join us." Join them? I couldn't even process it. I couldn't even speak. Was this what they had been planning all along? To bring me into their disgusting little arrangement like I was some kind of willing participant? They were offering me a chance to be part of their sick, twisted game. I let go of Eric, stepping back, feeling like I was about to vomit. My heart was pounding in my ears, and I couldn't believe what I was hearing. "Gary," Kelly whispered, stepping closer, "we can make this work. We can still be together, but we can be more open. We don't have to hide anymore. We don't have to lie. You and I can still have each other, but Eric, he can be part of this too." I turned to look at her, and in that moment, I saw the truth. This wasn't about love. This wasn't about reconnecting or fixing our marriage. This was about control. She wanted to control everything. Me, him, our relationship, and she thought I'd just go along with it. "Get out," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "Gary, please, just think about." "Get out," I shouted, louder than I ever thought possible. Kelly flinched, and for a moment, I thought she might try to argue. But then she grabbed Eric's arm and pulled him toward the door. They left without another word, and as soon as they were gone, I collapsed onto the bed, staring at the ceiling, trying to make sense of what had just happened. The house was quiet again, but nothing felt the same. Everything had changed, and I knew there was no going back from this. After they left, the silence in the house felt like it was pressing down on me. I was alone, finally, but it didn't feel like a relief. Instead, it felt like I had just been left behind in the middle of a wreck. My thoughts were a mess. How had everything fallen apart so fast? One minute, I had a wife, a family, a life that seemed normal, and the next, I was standing in the middle of what felt like a nightmare I couldn't wake up from. I sat on the bed, the same bed where they had been. The thought turned my stomach. I couldn't stay in there, couldn't be in a space that had been tainted by them. So I grabbed my keys and left. I didn't even know where I was going, but I needed to get out, to get away from the memories that were now poisoning everything. I ended up driving around for hours, no real destination in mind. I didn't want to go to my mom's. I didn't want to explain to anyone what had just happened. Not yet. It was too raw, too fresh. So I just drove, letting the empty streets and the dark sky blur together as I tried to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do next. I kept thinking about Kelly, about how she had lied to me, how she had snuck around for months, using me like I was some kind of fool. And that bastard Eric. I couldn't get his smug face out of my mind, the way he acted like it was no big deal, like what they had done to me wasn't betrayal of the worst kind. And the sex. The word wouldn't leave my head. I imagined them together, doing things that only she and I were supposed to do, in places that were supposed to be ours. The thought of him touching her, of them having sex while I was at work, oblivious, made my blood boil. I gripped the steering wheel tighter, my knuckles white. How could she have done this? And worse, how could she have thought I would join them? That I would be okay with sharing my wife like some kind of twisted game? It was like I didn't even know who she was anymore. The woman I married wouldn't have done this. Or at least, I thought she wouldn't have. The more I thought about it, the angrier I got. All those nights she was working late. All those times she had some excuse for why she was out, or why she didn't want to have sex with me. It all made sense now. She wasn't tired. She wasn't busy. She was with him, sleeping with him. I pulled the car over to the side of the road, the rage bubbling up to the surface again. I slammed my fists against the steering wheel, cursing, yelling, letting out the anger that had been building since that moment I saw them together. I felt betrayed, humiliated, like I had been played for a fool. When I finally calmed down enough to think straight, I checked the time. It was past midnight, and I was sitting on the side of some random street, completely lost in my own misery. I couldn't stay there, and I couldn't go home. Not with the bed, the house, the memories of them. So I did the only thing I could think of. I drove to a cheap motel on the edge of town and checked in. The room was small, dingy, and smelled faintly of cigarettes, but I didn't care. I just needed somewhere to crash, somewhere that wasn't filled with reminders of Kelly. I threw myself onto the stiff bed and stared at the ceiling, my mind racing again. It wasn't just the betrayal that was eating at me. It was the fact that Kelly had tried to justify it. She had looked me in the eyes and told me it wasn't just about sex, like that was supposed to make it better. She had felt something for Eric. That was worse, in a way. The fact that she had emotionally checked out, that she had made room in her heart for someone else, even while she was still with me. I couldn't stop imagining them together. How long had it been going on? A year? A full year of her lying to me, pretending everything was fine while she was sneaking off to be with him. Were they meeting up during lunch breaks? Was it in his office? In hotel rooms? I wondered if she had brought him into our house more than once. How many times had he been in our bed, touching her, while I was none the wiser? And what did that mean for our sex life? All those times we were intimate, was she thinking of him? Was I just a placeholder, something to fill the gap when Eric wasn't available? My stomach turned at the thought. I could still hear her saying it wasn't just about the sex, but the sex was part of it, wasn't it? The sneaking around, the physical betrayal. She had given him what was supposed to be mine, and now she wanted to keep both of us like we were toys she could play with. I sat up, rubbing my face in my hands, trying to figure out what the hell I was supposed to do. I wasn't ready to talk to her, to deal with the fallout. But I knew one thing. I couldn't just let this slide. I couldn't stay in a marriage where I was the second choice, the backup plan while she played house with someone else. No, this wasn't going to be fixed. There was no fixing this. I knew I needed to confront her again, but this time on my terms. I wasn't going to let her manipulate me into some twisted arrangement where she had the best of both worlds. She had made her choice the moment she invited Eric into our life, and now she was going to live with the consequences. I didn't sleep much that night. My mind wouldn't shut off, replaying everything over and over again. Her lies, her excuses, the image of them together. By the time the sun started to rise, I had made my decision. I was done with Kelly, done with her lies, done with the games, done with the cheating. I wasn't going to be a part of her sick little fantasy. She could have her fun with Eric, but she wasn't going to have me anymore. I'd make sure of that. I checked out of the motel early, heading back to the house, knowing I had to face her again. I didn't know what I was going to say yet, but I knew one thing for sure. This was the beginning of the end. I pulled into the driveway early that morning, the sun barely up, and sat in the car for a minute, just staring at the house. It felt foreign now, like I was an outsider looking in. This was the place where we built our life, where we raised our kids, and now it was nothing but a shell of broken promises. I had spent the night in a dingy motel, and Kelly? Who knew where she was, or who she was with? I took a deep breath, trying to steady myself. My mind was made up. I wasn't going to let her drag me into this nightmare any longer. I had to confront her, set things straight, and make it clear that I wasn't playing her game. I walked up to the front door, the key feeling heavier in my hand than it ever had before. As I stepped inside, the house was silent. No noise from the kids' toys, no coffee brewing in the kitchen, nothing. It was eerie, like I had stepped into a place that wasn't mine anymore. But I was done with the sentimental crap. I wasn't going to let her, or this house, hold any power over me. The bedroom door was shut, and for a split second, my heart dropped. Was Eric still here? Had they stayed the night together? The thought of walking in on them again made my blood boil. But I forced myself to keep moving, to push through the anger. I had to know. I threw the door open, ready for whatever was waiting on the other side. But it was just Kelly, alone, sitting on the edge of the bed, her head in her hands. She looked up as soon as I walked in, her eyes red and swollen from crying. For a second, there was that flicker of guilt, seeing her like this, so broken. But then the memory of what she'd done came flooding back, and I hardened myself against whatever pity I might have felt. She stood up quickly, like she was ready to explain again, but I wasn't here for her excuses. Gary, don't. I cut her off, my voice cold. I don't want to hear any more lies. No more excuses. I'm done, Kelly. Her eyes widened, and she stepped closer, her hands out in front of her like she was trying to stop me from walking away. Please, just listen to me. I know what I did was wrong. I know I hurt you, but we can fix this. We can still make this work. I laughed bitterly, shaking my head. Make this work? How? You think I'm going to stick around while you keep screwing him? You think I'm going to be the fool who lets his wife cheat and does nothing about it? It wasn't just about the sex, she shouted, her voice cracking. It was more than that. I was lonely. I felt like we were drifting apart. I made a mistake, but I still love you, Gary. I do. That's bullshit, Kelly, and you know it, I snapped. You don't get to cheat for a year and then call it a mistake. You knew what you were doing every single time. You chose him. You chose to lie. And now you want to keep both of us in your little fantasy? No, I'm not playing this game anymore. She stood there, speechless for a moment, her lips trembling. Then, in a voice barely above a whisper, she said, I didn't want to lose you. I didn't know how to stop once it started. I felt a surge of anger that I couldn't contain. Lose me? You lost me the second you let him touch you, Kelly. The second you had sex with him. The second you brought him into our home, into our bed. She winced at that, but I wasn't going to let her off easy. I had been the loyal husband, the trusting fool, and now it was my turn to lay everything out. Do you even realize what you've done? I asked, my voice low and cold. You didn't just hurt me. You shattered everything. Every memory, every moment we've shared. It's all tainted now. And you want to sit here and talk about fixing it? There's nothing left to fix, Kelly. Her tears started again, but this time, I didn't care. She had done this. She had brought this mess into our lives, and now she had to live with it. I don't want a divorce, she whispered, her voice breaking. I don't want to lose you. I shook my head, taking a step back. Well, you should have thought about that before you started screwing him. You don't get to cheat, and then ask me to stay. I could see the desperation in her eyes, the panic setting in. She knew, finally, that she had pushed me too far. There was no going back now. Please, Gary, she begged, stepping toward me again. We can go to therapy. We can work through this. I'll end it with Eric, I swear. I'll do whatever it takes. But I was already done. I didn't want her promises, her tears, her apologies. They were meaningless. She had crossed a line that couldn't be uncrossed. And I wasn't going to be the guy who stayed with the woman who broke his heart over and over again. Therapy won't fix this, Kelly, I said quietly. Nothing will. You made your choice. I could see the realization dawn on her face. Finally. She knew I wasn't going to stay. She knew I was serious. Her hands dropped to her sides, and for the first time, she didn't have anything to say. I turned to leave, but then something stopped me. One last question burned in my mind, and I couldn't walk away without knowing. How many times? I asked, my voice tight. She looked at me, confused. What? How many times did you have sex with him? In our bed? Her face paled, and she hesitated before answering. Gary, just tell me, I demanded, my voice shaking with anger. How many times? She swallowed hard, her eyes dropping to the floor. 5, maybe 6. I don't remember. That was it. The final nail in the coffin. I felt like I was going to be sick. The image of them together in our bed, my bed, burned into my mind. It was too much. I turned and walked out of the room, slamming the door behind me. I couldn't stay in that house a second longer. It was poisoned, just like our marriage. I needed to get out, needed to escape the suffocating weight of what had happened. As I walked out of the front door, I heard Kelly calling after me, but I didn't turn around. I didn't even glance back. I got into my car, started the engine, and drove off, leaving everything behind. I didn't know where I was going, but I knew I wasn't coming back. Not to that house, not to her. She had destroyed everything, and now, it was time for me to start picking up the pieces. I drove aimlessly for hours, the numbness settling in like a cold weight in my chest. The streets were starting to fill with people heading to work, living their normal lives, while mine had just been shattered. I couldn't go back to that house. Hell, I didn't even know if I could ever set foot in it again. Everything in there felt contaminated. By lies, by betrayal, by him. I ended up at a diner on the edge of town. One of those places that looks like it hasn't changed in 50 years, but the coffee's strong and no one asks questions. I needed that. Just a quiet place where I could sit and think about what the hell I was supposed to do next. I took a seat in the corner, away from the windows, and ordered a black coffee. The waitress didn't even glance at me as she set it down, and for that, I was thankful. I wasn't in the mood for small talk or sympathy. As I sat there, staring into the cup, my mind drifted back to Kelly's words. It wasn't just about the sex. The way she had said it, like that made things better. Like the fact that there were feelings involved somehow made the betrayal less disgusting. But it didn't. It made it worse. The physical part, I could almost understand. People make mistakes. They have a lapse in judgment. But this was something deeper. This wasn't just about a bad decision. She had chosen him over and over again. Let him into our lives, our bed, our marriage. She had opened a door I never even knew existed, and now she was asking me to walk through it with them. What kind of person does that? I took a sip of coffee, bitter and hot, and leaned back in the booth. The realization was hitting me hard now. I wasn't going to save this marriage. And more importantly, I didn't want to. The woman I thought I knew, the woman I had built my life with, was gone. Or maybe she had never been there at all, and I had been living in some kind of fantasy. Either way, it didn't matter. I was done pretending. I was going to leave her. The thought was terrifying and, at the same time, liberating. I didn't know what the future looked like, but I knew one thing for certain. I wasn't going to be a part of whatever twisted relationship she and Eric had cooked up. I took another sip of my coffee, feeling the warmth spread through my chest, and began to plan. I needed to see a lawyer. I needed to figure out the house, the kids. I had to make sure I wasn't screwed over more than I already had been. And then, I'd file for divorce. But the kids, that was the hardest part. What was I supposed to do about them? How do you walk away from your wife and not destroy your family in the process? I didn't have an answer for that yet, but I knew I couldn't stay for them. Not like this. Staying would only make things worse for all of us. I grabbed my phone, staring at the screen for a long moment before finally pulling up the contact for a lawyer I knew through a friend. His name was Dan, and he had a reputation for being ruthless in divorce cases. I hit dial, my heart pounding in my chest as I waited for him to pick up. Dan Roberts. His voice came through the line, clipped and professional. Dan, it's Gary, I said, my voice sounding weaker than I expected. I need to talk to you. It's about Kelly. There was a brief pause on the other end before he replied, I'm sorry to hear that. Let's set up a meeting. Can you come by my office later today? I agreed, and we scheduled the meeting for that afternoon. Hanging up the phone, I felt a strange sense of relief wash over me. It wasn't much, but it was a start. I was taking control. I was doing something to get out of this mess. I paid for my coffee and left the diner, my mind clearer than it had been in days. There was still a long road ahead, but at least now I had a direction. By the time I got to Dan's office later that day, I had managed to shove down most of the anger, but the hurt was still there, gnawing at me. Dan was exactly how I remembered him. Sharp suit, sharp mind, the kind of guy who doesn't miss anything. I walked in, sat down across from him, and gave him the rundown. The affair, the betrayal, everything. He listened, nodding occasionally, but never interrupted. When I was finished, he leaned back in his chair, hands folded in front of him. You've got 2 kids, right? Yeah, 5 and 3, I replied, my voice heavy. He sighed, shaking his head. This isn't going to be easy, Gary. The courts are going to favor her when it comes to custody unless you can prove she's unfit. The fact that she's having an affair won't necessarily make a difference unless you can show it's affecting the kids. I nodded, already knowing this wasn't going to be a clean break. I don't want to take the kids from her, I said, and I meant it. I don't know what to do. I can't stay with her after everything she's done, but I don't want to make this worse for them. Dan gave me a sympathetic look, though I could tell he'd had this conversation 100 times before. We can file for divorce and ask for joint custody. It won't be easy, but if you play your cards right, you'll still get to see them as much as possible. As for the house, that's going to be up for negotiation. But you might want to consider moving out for now. Move out? I asked, my stomach tightening at the thought of leaving the only place I'd known as home for so many years. And go where? Find a place temporarily. If things get ugly, you don't want to be living under the same roof as her. Trust me, it'll make things worse. I rubbed my face, feeling the weight of everything pressing down on me. But I knew he was right. I couldn't stay in that house, not after everything. I needed space, and I needed to start thinking about what my life was going to look like without her in it. Okay, I said finally. Let's do it. Dan nodded and started explaining the next steps, filing the paperwork, gathering financial records, figuring out custody schedules. It all felt like too much, but I tried to keep up, to focus on the plan. I had to keep moving forward. There was no other option. By the time I left Dan's office, the sun was starting to set, casting long shadows across the parking lot. I sat in my car for a few minutes, just letting it sink in. I was really doing this. I was really leaving Kelly, breaking apart everything we had built. But there was no going back now. I had made my decision, and I was going to see it through. When I pulled up to the house, the lights were on inside, and I could see Kelly through the front window, sitting on the couch, her head in her hands. I didn't feel anything looking at her. No anger, no sadness, just nothing. I had spent the last few days grieving for a marriage that had already died a long time ago. I stepped inside, and Kelly looked up, her eyes puffy and red from crying. "Gary, we need to talk," she said, her voice barely a whisper. I closed the door behind me and took a deep breath. "I've already talked to a lawyer, Kelly. I'm filing for divorce." She flinched at the word, and for a moment, I thought she was going to break down again. But she didn't. She just sat there, staring at me like she couldn't believe it had come to this. "I'm moving out," I continued, trying to keep my voice steady. "I'll find a place close by, and we'll work out a custody schedule for the kids. But this, whatever this is, it's over." She didn't say anything for a long time, just sat there, her hands clenched in her lap, her eyes glassy with unshed tears. "Are you sure?" she asked finally, her voice barely audible. "Yeah," I said, my chest tight. "I'm sure." There was nothing left to say. The woman I had loved, the woman I thought I was going to spend the rest of my life with, was gone. Maybe she had been gone for a while, and I just hadn't noticed. But now, it was time to move on. Time to let go of the anger, the hurt, and the betrayal, and start rebuilding my life. I left her sitting there on the couch, walked into the bedroom one last time, and packed a bag with whatever I could fit. As I walked out of the house, the weight on my chest felt a little lighter. I didn't know where I was going yet, but for the first time in a long time, I felt like I was heading in the right direction.